Hey, this is Brad Thomas from Silence and Light, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Where are you located?
Right now I'm in Savannah, Georgia, doing a little bit of traveling, and that was kind of a last minute thing that wasn't planned, but um, yeah, I'm good to keep on.
That's one of my favorite cities. I love it there.
I've been maybe 5 times, and there are definitely some great spots and a fun town. I I honestly haven't been able to spend enough time here to really kind of get to know it.
Yeah, we get
As
down
much as
there.
I'd like.
We get down there like once a year. We usually go to Florida and then make a couple day stop there, and I love it down there. It's got a
Oh,
cool
nice,
vibe.
very cool,
So let's talk about Silence and Light then. I
awesome.
I absolutely love what you guys are doing, and I'm curious, how did it all come about? I mean, you're all from different branches of the force. How did you hook up?
So it started with kind of a concept that I had, which was I wanted to give back to the community, to the special operations community. And I didn't want to start a foundation or do something where I needed to ask people for money. And, played music long before I joined the military and played music all through my time in the military. And I don't know, I thought about it for a few years and really didn't have a good idea for what I wanted to do. And was meeting my bandmate Jason, who was in Nirvana and Soundgarden prior to joining the Army in 1994.
Hmm.
I was meeting him to go see a Mastodon show, and as I was driving to meet him, it just kind of clicked, and I thought, "Hey, I can put together a band. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what we're going to play or how this is going to work out, but I can take royalties from streams and sales and things like that, and I can contribute those to organizations that help veterans." And so that's really where it started about 2018.
So is this solely for contributions to special forces?
No, it's not. It's not special forces. It goes to two different. Right now, we're contributing to two different organizations. One is called Warrior's Heart,
Okay.
which is for soldiers, first responders. It could be doctors suffering from PTSD. It's a physical facility in Texas, and they're getting ready to open a second one, I think, in Virginia. And they treat PTSD, they treat substance abuse. And one of the things that they do that speaks to me is that they use art as a form of therapy.
Oh, wow.
And so I love that. A fellow soldier buddy of mine is the one that started the organization and started the facility. So it just kind of made sense. The other is a Marine Raider Foundation, which directly gives to the Marine Raider, MARSOC
Right.
branch of service. So those are the two things that we're contributing to. Initially, the concept was every member of the band would give his portion of the royalties to a charitable organization and then be able to speak and have talking points about those organizations. And it
Right.
turned into me doing all the media and not wanting to talk about 5 different things.
Right.
So
No, that makes
I just
sense.
wanted to simplify it.
I appreciate what you're doing for sure, because in my real time job or my real world job, whatever you call it, I am a police dispatcher, have been for 19 years. And I've seen, people suffering from what you're talking about, PTSD and those high stress situations. So that's a really cool thing.
Well, I've personally been surrounded by way more suicides than I ever thought that I would be in my
Right.
lifetime. to include murder suicides and people that had just had all kinds of damage and things like that. And, again, I feel like in the community, there's been a lot of talk about, 22 a day and those types of things. And I felt like that was kind of like beating an empty drum. And again, it's like all you have to do is stream the music. You're unwittingly contributing to, these organizations that do good things for great people.
Right. So when you're writing your music and writing your lyrics, are you writing like with that message in mind?
Not so much. There's a song on our first album that's called Look After Me. And originally it wasn't intended to be an acoustic song. And our producer, who is a guy by the name of Josh Goodwin, Gudwin, he's Bieber's producer. He's Dua Lipa, Bad Bunny. Like, he's a big time legit guy. He's a former Marine. And he reached out to me when I was starting this whole social media kind of campaign. Hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. And he said, I'd love to produce your album. Wow. And I thought, who is this guy? So I looked him up and I'm like, oh, wow.
Right,
okay,
yeah.
he's a legit dude. So anyway, originally we had this song written and it was not like a ballad, but it started with a softer and kind of built up and got heavy. And the song it really was a goodbye to all of my teammates and friends that I've lost along the way that I never really had a chance to say goodbye to. And, if you're deployed, a lot of times when a teammate's killed, you're still over there deployed. The memorial service is happening, the funeral, the burial is happening, and you kind of get home a month or two later and like, it's just, oh, hey, welcome home, go home to your family, have fun now. Right. And, there's really no closure. So the song Look After Me on our first album was definitely geared towards, trying to speak to some of the experiences that we've had. We really kind of write about all kinds of things, this most recent album, it really kind of tapped into the early 90s, grunge scene before it was grunge, and really kind of that movement. And I don't know, it was the soundtrack of my life through a lot of really challenging times. Right. And so it's kind of an homage to that. There's some lyrics on that album that are specifically about, a lot of the people that we loved in the music industry and the bands that we love that are no longer with us.
Right. There's too many.
Yeah, it's just way too many. So whether it's substance abuse, whether it's mental illness, whether it's suicide because of PTSD or whatever it might be, we're hoping that it relates to people that are, feeling that same way.
So along those lines, then, how much responsibility, maybe not any, but how much responsibility do you feel towards your listeners to, be honest and vulnerable with your lyrics?
As much as possible. What's interesting is Fred writes all the lyrics. So our singer writes all the lyrics. I write all the music, and generally have a concept for the song. Sometimes I give him bullet comments. Hey, I want this song to be about this. This is the vibe. Here are some lines that stand out to me and things like that. But we're kind of all a group of people that put it all out there. I don't think we're hiding. There are people in the group that have struggled. Right. They've talked about those struggles. I've definitely lived some dark times and, things that were really difficult and traumatic events and living through that. And, I feel like ultimately this is a creative, healthy outlet for me to unload some of the things that I've lived with for, the past 30 something years.
We talk about it a lot on the show that I think music, especially heavier music like this, is very cathartic for the artist as well as the listener, right? Sure.
Yeah, it's whether, whatever your mood might be, I could put on Nutshell by Alice in Chains and, wow, it hits me every single time. Right. And, there's something to music. Some people aren't music people. I've always been a music person.
Right.
It's something that's related to me. It could be emotions. It could be love. It could be, you name it. But I've always connected.
And there's something about those special songs and music in general that So you just talked about that song that, connects with you. Every time you hear it, you're back where you first heard it, right? You're just in that zone 30 years later or 30 years before, like almost transported like a time machine.
Yeah, it's they say, your senses are how you do recall and how things are recalled and memories and powerful things. And yeah, music definitely does it for me. It takes me right back.
Yeah, it's very crazy. So when you guys are writing, then are you writing all together, like in the traditional sense, or are you writing more or less sending stuff back and forth?
Well, I think that there's, I get asked that a fair amount. In We don't all live in the same hometown. We're not next door neighbors, and we don't, share a townhouse and party and things like that. But I, most bands today aren't all living, they're not riding in the same tour bus,
Right.
and,
I know.
they're not all together writing music together like the good old days and things like that. I'll come up with general concepts and kind of hearing the song. And so I have an idea of how I want it to go. Um, for the first album, I would share those just iPhone recordings, and guys could mess around with them and
Right.
add their parts. And what we found was putting this album together. If we did that together, it actually came out better. It just sounded more spontaneous. So I didn't send them all of the ideas. It was, here's 7 ideas. Let's work on these 7 today and see where they go. And
Right.
one of them would stick, and we just stay with it until it was kind of done. And so it's evolved a little bit from album 1 to album 2.
And I think that's, I mean, obviously that's how the predecessors wrote music, because we didn't have email and Dropbox and all that other stuff. But I think it's very much more organic and less sterile than when you're emailing stuff back and forth, right? I mean, and I think as a listener, you can pretty much tell, because music is not like quantized, or shouldn't be super quantized, right? Especially rock and roll. There should be some little sway, and the drummer should be, off for a second, and it should move, right? And breathe.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we discovered with this album also. And that was one of the things that, Goodwin, for his musical prowess and production prowess with pop, rock isn't that way.
No.
And it morphs, and it goes from 113 BPM during the verse to maybe 120,
and it's not always perfect, right? You need those imperfections.
Yeah, and so we did a few tracks. We used Pro Tools for everything on this album, but we went off the grid, and almost all of it is off the grid. So the goal for album 3, because we're already writing and working on that, is we put stuff together and we kind of do our own rough demos. We don't try and get a polished demo, because
Right.
then you turn into recording a demo, not letting the song be what it needs to be. So the goal with this next album is that we do live track everything. It's just live track like the old days, and we're also putting it on tape.
That's gonna be nice.
Yeah, we did that with this album. We got the Pro Tools session, and then I had it sent to the studio where we recorded the album, and he had a tape machine, and his producer, Dick Hodgkin, who did some of the original Hootie and the Blowfish and a bunch of other folks, and he cut his teeth on tape back in the day. And
Like 2-inch tape?
I had him run our Pro Tools sessions onto tape and then bounce it back to Pro Tools, and we could merge the two, the left and right sides.
Right.
And it's an audible difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's the goal. And the next one is just live everything.
And that you're gonna have to stick to that studio then, right? Because most people don't even have tape machines anymore.
Yeah, it's super handy. He's in downtown Raleigh.
Mhm.
We kind of consider, we have a rehearsal studio in Raleigh,
Oh, okay.
and we kind of consider Raleigh to be, that's our hub, and that's kind of where we're all together when we are all together, if we're not playing a show or doing some other things.
Speaking of shows, what's your plan? Are you planning on taking this on the road? Is it going to be one-offs or?
We've done a bunch of one-offs, and I think, we would love to get into playing some festivals and things like that. I mean, I know when my baby is ugly, and with this album, I feel like it's an incredible album, and the more people that hear it however they hear it or however they come across it, the more people are going to love it. And, we can get out in front of, some festival type places and off of the one-off and private events and things like that. That's our goal.
Okay. So anything that you can mention ahead of time? Is there anything coming up, or are you still working on that kind of stuff?
We've got we've got I don't want to call it a VFW tour, but there is a package that's being put together and was pitched to the president of VFW, and he's agreed to this, but travel around to different military installations at VFW posts that are close by. And they have actually pretty large followings. So
And
I would rather
built-in audience.
Yeah. And it's our crowd,
Right.
Those are the people that are streaming our music. Those are the people that are connecting with it and things like that. So, and then the goal with that is also to kind of grow it to the USO. And we'd love to be able to go do some USO stuff also.
Oh, like overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, that's our people. That's,
Right. And I imagine with your connections, that's probably not so far-fetched.
No. It's, I see things like, I once saw Chevelle at Fort Bragg at the fairgrounds, like 4th of July, and
right.
Those are the types of things where, we should be able to play those types of venues and events open for Chevelle and things like that. Our very first show was playing in front of, right before Lenny Kravitz for a special event and about 5,000 people.
How'd that go? Pretty well?
Yeah, it just wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
We just wanted to do more.
Right. So you said you're working on a new record. Are you guys one of those bands that's always working on new music, or do you set aside or carve out time just to write?
So I come up with all the concepts and all of the, oh man, hold on. Something went away here. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Okay, there we go. I put together all the concepts and things like that. I have a hard time working on anything new until the old is finished.
Right.
So I basically did no new writing until we got all the mixing and mastering done for the album that's out now. And once I got that off the plate, then I was kind of able to concentrate and do new things. I try and put myself in a place where I don't listen to any of the bands that I like. And so I have, from my early 80s days, I love new wave, and I'll listen to nothing but like new wave. So I'm not tainting my writing senses with
that makes
just
sense.
Listening to this or just listening to that. I try and stay, completely clear of the things that I really love.
80s new wave, we talking about like Flock of Seagulls and
Yeah, for me, having lived that time.
Psychedelic Furs is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, Psychedelic Furs, The Fix.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like Red Skies, Stand or Fall, those things like
early MTV.
Yeah, I think people think of new wave and they mention all of the, the things that would get mentioned on VH1. Here are all the A sides and everything else, but so much on the radio back then was not just the popular stuff. Alternative stations. Like I grew up right outside of DC, and WHFS just had this incredible, like you could hear metal, you could hear alternative, heard U2 there for the first time, heard REM there for the first time, early 80s.
Yeah.
And, got turned on to a lot of really cool stuff.
Sweet. So that brings me to the end of my questions. Did I miss anything you want to cover?
No, man, I think we got it all other than just, our socials and things like that, which.
Please. Yeah. Drop them.
Okay. Yeah. So, Silence and Light Official on Instagram. If anybody Googles Silence and Light, you'll find all of our stuff. Brad Thomas Official on Instagram and Facebook. We're all over any of that. The last thing I'll say is that, we're contributing a significant amount of money personally to record music, to travel, to stay in hotels, to flip the bill for this. And the only way for us to really recoup anything is through merchandise sales. So if people want to help the cause and help us out, I think we've spent a total of probably $60,000 between album 1 and album 2 and all of the we did this for real. It's not sitting in someone's basement on a laptop.
Right.
We're not asking for money back, but if someone wants to help the band out, contribute, help us because they believe in what we're doing, best way is through merchandise. And we've got some cool new stuff up.
Awesome. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for your service. And thank you, my friend. I hope that wasn't too bad.
No, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good luck with the
All right.
record. Good luck with the tour. Maybe we'll see you up here. I'm in Richmond. Hopefully we'll see you up this way sometime.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.